I want to segue into Meredith now, because what's really interesting in the report you're going to hear from Meredith and on Gen Z is how much they want brands to ask them to help, how much they want to co-create platforms as well, together with brands, which I think provides a really interesting opportunity for the brand to, as we say, be the helper, not the hero. So Meredith, why don't we go to you? And first of all, just tell us a little bit about what is Do Something Strategic. I'm a big fan of what you guys do, but please explain to everybody else what it is. And you may need to take yourself off mute.
Damn
There
it,
you
I'm one of those. Sorry. Do Something Strategic is the social impact consulting arm of DoSomething.org. And DoSomething.org is the largest tech platform for young people and social change. DoSomething.org has over 5 million members in every single area code in 100 in the US and in 131 countries worldwide. And so we have over 5 million members that we talk to every single day. We text with nearly 3 million young people every week. So we hear from them every day on sort of what they care about and how they're taking action more broadly. And so as a social impact consultancy, we're able to really leverage those insights, leverage that really deep understanding of who young people are, how they behave, and what they expect of brands, and really connect with brands and organizations, nonprofits too, like Pink, Nike, PwC, Habitat for Humanity, and really help them understand how they can build a deeper relationship with young people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I love the work you guys do. You got some fascinating research to share with us. Why don't we dive in and keep those questions coming in right throughout? We'll answer them at the end.
Cool. Let me share my screen here.
And by the way, yes, we will be sharing all of these decks right after the call. We'll send it out to everybody via Dropbox link.
So we've been sending out to our members every single week a survey that's just wanting to touch base with how they're feeling, how they're doing, how this is impacting them. And we've gotten thousands of respondents every single week. We're in week 6 now, to every survey representing every state in the country and beyond, and all ages. And when I say member, it's someone who has given us a means to communicate with them one-to-one or one-to-few. So generally that's by text, but also by email. And they're between the ages of 13 and 25. And so we really keep our finger on the pulse of this crew, and they've told us a lot. And each week we're asking about how they're feeling, why they're feeling that way, of course, how this is impacting them, what they're doing to keep busy, entertained, to cope, what they're surprised about, where they're finding joy, how well they think the government is responding, both nationally, locally, schools, how this is really impacting their thoughts and intentions around the upcoming elections in the US, and what they expect of brands. And that last one is what we'll touch on today. And I think it's probably no surprise that week over week concern remains high. I can tell you just this last survey, the number was still at around 91%. And the reasons center around all the things you can expect: health, the risk of spreading it, the risk of getting it, the risk of their loved ones getting sick, and certainly the economic impact as well. And that is actually increasing as a reason for concern among them. And of course, how long this is going to last. That's a big one. And so while there aren't a lot of new concerns coming up each week, the way that Gen Z is talking about these concerns really does feel like it's shifting from more sort of hypothetical to, which is sort of what we were seeing in those first few weeks, as to be expected. And now you're just seeing the concerns kind of shift to this more firsthand experience, and more people knowing someone who is sick, or, school impacts are now set in stone, and they're kind of trying to figure out what next steps look like and what's really in jeopardy here, and really just concern about how bad things are going to get, and how long this will all last. So it's not surprising to see that young people have great anxiety around this, as we all do. They're not unique in that, but they're unique in their experiences around that. And so we wanted to know, back when the country was first put on shutdown, we asked on March 24th, well, what do you believe the role of brands should be in light of COVID-19? And the top 2 answers overwhelmingly centered on sort of taking care of your employees, ensuring safety, closing stores, offering delivery, and protecting employees financially, right? Like providing paid sick leave, avoiding layoffs. And you'll see this later. this priority of taking care of your employees still remains true. So really important to understand what they're really expecting of brands, and it's more internal than you might think. And this young people are paying attention. And not surprisingly, a significant majority of young people are saying that this pandemic has impacted their purchasing decisions. I can tell you 58% say it's had a significant impact. And again, this isn't unique to Gen Z necessarily, but it is interesting to see how Gen Z is sort of saying that some of their decisions are impacted by how a brand actually is behaving, which is exactly what Neil and Jonathan were speaking to. They're watching, they're paying attention, and already 23% have stopped purchasing a brand because it hasn't taken action in a way that they desired, and they're not behaving in a way that is how they would expect or aligns with their values. And nearly half have bought or plan to buy from brands that are taking action in the right ways. So it's important to understand that young people are watching, and the sort of cancel culture is real, and they're not afraid to sort of use their dollars to show their feelings. And so we wanted to know more. We kind of dug in a little bit and said, well, why don't you tell us some examples? 75% in this particular week, it was over 3,000 respondents, 75% could name a brand right away that they loved more because of the brand's response to the COVID-19 crisis, from taking care of their employees to donating financially, providing needed supplies. All of those things matter. And top shops, that were mentioned were sort of local mom and pop places, local breweries, for instance, for making hand sanitizer, or some of their favorite local restaurants for giving out free food to families who had been laid off. But certainly other national brands leveraged to the top. You can see this quote is from somebody who felt like Nordstrom, really made their list for helping to produce masks. Many others mentioned Nordstrom. Crocs was a big mention, if you can believe that. They had given away 10,000 pairs of shoes every day to healthcare workers. So again, young people are watching, they're reading, they're paying attention, and they're talking. And then we said, well, can you name a brand that you like less? And in fact, they could. 47% could name a brand they liked less based on the brand's response to this crisis. And I think it's sort of summed up beautifully by this 18-year-old who's basically saying just any brand that keeps going as usual. It's so tone deaf. And when we drilled in a little deeper, 42% of the people who liked the brand less did so because of how that brand treated their employees. And while Walmart got some credit for keeping employees on payroll and protecting some benefits, they received an equal number of negative comments centered entirely around not protecting their employees better. It's fascinating to think a 19-year-old in Oklahoma is paying attention to this, but they are all over the country. And multiple respondents echoed this sentiment from this 22-year-old in Minnesota who called out Sephora. I mean, this news got around quick. And again, wow. I don't even know if this is true, right? But this is their reality, and this is what they're talking about. And it's also important just to remain sensitive more broadly to what consumers are going through. You can really risk coming across as tone deaf or opportunistic. There are a number of call outs in this section around how brands sort of weren't responding in the way that they expected. And they were really losing favor among Gen Z for peddling sales prices when, or just going about their standard marketing, standard programming, kind of blatantly using this pandemic as a marketing sort of ploy rather than really understanding what's going on out there. Again, this is impacting Gen Z as much as it's impacting everybody else, and they're feeling it. And so they're seeing how brands are perhaps using this as a marketing opportunity, which is pretty poor. And we asked brands sort of how they should engage young people. Great, so that's how they want you to behave, but how do you expect them to engage young people? And again, taking care of employees remains a top priority for them. 67% want brands to keep them informed on how they're supporting their employees and their broader team, their supply chain partners, all of those folks that make up their enterprise. So really, really important. And they also want to know how brands are pitching in. I mean, I think Jonathan and Neil said it well. I mean, they are trusting the brands as well as government to sort of help out in this pandemic. And so they're asking you to keep them informed on what you're doing to make a difference during this crisis. And then the really interesting thing is the opportunity for brands to really invite consumers to take part. And this is the thing, and this is our whole point of view, right? Our whole point of view at Do Something Strategic is do something, and not just do it as part of the brand, but do it as part of your community. And what an opportunity. These are nearly half are saying, raising their hand and saying, I want to do something with you, brand. Help me get involved and finding a solution and helping out my community around me. And certainly we've seen initiatives like Lowe's sort of sent out that call to DIYers to make homemade thank you signs for healthcare workers. Steakums did a fundraiser for Feeding America, and very blatantly asked their community to follow along and chip in. ESPN, candidly, this is a campaign with DoSomething.org, but ESPN is doing a campaign with our organization around weekly asks of young people to everything from making masks to making posters. So there's so much more that brands could be doing in this space. And we're hard pressed to find enough brands that we can use as examples here. That I'll say for real. And what an opportunity to finally sort of create a community that's on something bigger than just your price and promotion. And with that, I'll sort of just end with community building. Meaningful engagements are absolutely business drivers and should be part of every brand's business strategy. You may have seen this CNBC interview of Chip Bergh from Levi Strauss, where he said that the brands that are going to win are going to be the ones that have deep connections with their consumers. And we could not sort of agree with that more. Brands who prioritized building a relationship with their consumers and created a foundation based on shared values by being more purpose driven are the ones that now have permission to talk to and engage their community beyond just their latest sale, right? We get it. You got to sell product. You got to push the percentage off in the promo. Yes, and launch that new product, of course. But when brands are only doing that, a crisis like this really shows you that they don't have the connections to really be vulnerable, to really be community driven. And I can tell you, your email list does not equate to your community, period. That is not what community is. Community is about, especially among Gen Z, they're telling us, it's about connection and belonging and a relationship, a two-way relationship. And so you see brands like Lush who are providing, which by the way is a huge Gen Z favorite. Lush is providing this very detailed ongoing update around their ordeal and how they're treating their employees, what they're doing. It's extraordinarily honest. It's incredibly transparent. And young people are appreciative of that. They're saying, yeah, they are saying, I'm part of your family and you're treating me like that. You're communicating with me like that. You see brands like Harry's who have long stood for, a platform of mental health. And now they're able to leverage that and connect with their consumers, not just through 2-for-1 razors, but they're able to say, hey, we've got 2-for-1 razors and we have a partnership with Crisis Text Line. We're here for you. Make sure you're reaching out and getting the help you need at this time. And here are 3 things you can do. And they have the permission to talk about mental health in a way that J. Crew doesn't. J. Crew's out there pushing sale after sale. I'm ready to see an email where they're telling me their fixtures are, for sale. At some point, it's about really creating a community based on things that really matter beyond just price and product. And that is my biggest hope, is that coming out of this, that brands will see that yes, a short-term strategy is to drive those immediate sales. Yes, yes, yes. And a long-term strategy is to build a real community based on shared values, and that starts with purpose.
Amazing. Thank you, Meredith. Couldn't have said it, more, couldn't 100% agree with you. I think what people are saying is we're getting to the point where they're saying to brands, help me find ways to help others, right? If you can give me something to do, whether it's sewing a face mask, like we've seen this wonderful stuff with Teeks, this shoe brand with hashtag sew together, or help me just do something while I'm sitting in the house, to help other people who might need help. That is a huge opportunity for brands as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing.
And that's always been the case, I'll say, just from our perspective with Gen Z. This is true. I can tell you that long before COVID, this was about 1.5 years ago, we did a study called Dollars and Change. And even then, 49% of brands or young people said, I want brands to engage me in ways that are meaningful. Give me things to do with you. And what an opportunity that few brands really take advantage of.